So now we're going to kind of get into an intro to proofs and figuring out how to find missing angles and prove our answers. So we're going to do 3 example models, and I'm going to have you draw them on your paper just like I'm doing. And we are going to label the first angle at 148 degrees and the second angle as x. And I did not know what I was doing right there, but we are going to have x equals something, and then we're going to answer the question of how do you know this? For number 2, we're going to draw this model as well. And I'm going to label my big angle with 117 degrees, so I know the whole thing is 117, but I'm going to split that into 2 angles. I am going to label the larger one with 94 degrees and the smaller one with x. For this one, we are going to write an equation to solve. So we're going to write equation, write the equation right next to it, and then we're going to have x equals down at the bottom, which is going to have our answer. That x was ugly, so I'm going to write a less ugly one. And that is where you will put your answer once you've solved your equation. And for number 3, you're going to draw the next model, which looks like what I am drawing right now. We are going to label one angle with 35 degrees and the one directly across from it with x. And we are going to have x equals something, and then you're going to have to tell me how you know. And that was me making a mistake. So now you're going to pause the video for about 5 minutes, and then we are going to get into the answers to these questions. So right now you are going to pause and you are going to solve them. So now that you've paused the video and you've taken the time to solve, we know that the first answer is 148 degrees because these are vertical angles, and vertical angles are congruent. For the second one, our equation will be x plus 94 equals 117 because we know those two angles will come together to form an 117 degree angle. And when we subtract 94 from both sides, we get x equals 23 degrees. And for the third one, we know that x will be 35 degrees because these are two sets of vertical angles. And as we have said before, vertical angles are always congruent. And I'm actually going to highlight this just because I really want to hit it home with you guys that they are always congruent. It's going to help you so much if you can remember that. It is something that is super important for you to know, and something that will help you so much when you take K-Prep and MAP and you are answering ERQs. It is just a great way to prove your reasoning. So I really want you to understand that. So the next thing, we are going to be writing this down, and I know it's going to be a little bit to write down, but it's okay. And it is that angle relationships are going to allow us to determine unknown measurements. So all that means is by understanding that vertical angles are congruent, you're able to find the measurements of other unknown angles. That's literally all this definition is saying, is that if you know that, it's going to make it easier for you to solve angles in the long run, which is what I've been saying the whole time, okay? So it's not anything new. It's just a more professional way of saying what I've been saying the whole time. So remember that all angles around an intersection will add up to 360 degrees. So kind of like what I said earlier in the lesson, okay? They will always add up to 360. So it's a really great way to check your work. And I'm actually going to highlight this too, and I would like you to underline it just because it is such an easy way to check your work. It's just going to kind of help you to ensure that you are getting the right answer on a lot of these questions. And it's just going to be an extra tool that you have in your tool belt to complete your work. So now we're going to do some examples, and I'm going to kind of speed through here. So you don't have to write, let's do some examples, but you are going to have to draw the model. So we're going to start by drawing a straight line. And then I'm going to just draw an intersecting line through it. I'm going to make two angles on the bottom. And then we're going to answer some questions with these. So number 1, is going to ask you to write and solve an equation for angle K right here. And then number 2 is going to ask you to write and solve an equation for angle M right here. So write and solve an equation for angle M. So right now is where you're going to want to pause, and you are going to take about 5 minutes to go ahead and do these two problems on your own. So now that you've paused the video for 5 minutes, we are going to work through these together. So when we're looking for angle K right here, we notice right here we've got a straight angle. So we know that all of these three together have to equal 180 degrees, which is where I get 60 plus 40 plus angle K equals 180 degrees because they're all on this side of the straight line, okay? So that means 100 plus angle K will equal 180. And we're going to subtract 100 from both sides to figure out that angle K is going to equal 80 degrees. Okay? So it's really important that you're able to figure out that that is a straight line so that these three have to equal 180 degrees. So for number 2, we're going to write and solve an equation to find the measurement of angle M. And if you look, what I drew in blue right here are one set of vertical angles, okay? So right here, even though this is split into two, it's still a vertical angle to angle M. So that means that angle M is going to equal 60 degrees plus 40 degrees. And angle M is going to equal 100 degrees since those are vertical angles right here. And so that means that this right here and this right here have to be congruent. So even though it's split into two, we can still draw this as one big angle that equals 100 degrees, and that has to be congruent to angle M. So model 2, we're going to go ahead and draw that. And I'm going to kind of go through it really quick just for time, because you'll have time to draw it when we're copying it down, okay? So number 1 is going to ask you to write and solve an equation to find the measurement of angle G. And number 2 is going to ask you, based on the information given in the measure of angle G, explain how you can determine the measure of angle J. Okay? So right here is where you're going to want to pause the video for about 5 minutes, more if you need it, less if you don't, and you are going to solve the two problems. So now that you've paused the video, we're going to go through them together, okay? The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and label this angle as 90 degrees. Since it's got the box, I know it's a right angle, okay? And I know that because I've got my straight angle right here, and these three angles sit on top of it, that all three together must equal 180 degrees. So I'm going to take away 32 plus 90 from this side, and I'm also going to take away 32 plus 90 from this side. Okay? And all I'm doing is basically adding those two together. That's all I'm doing, and subtracting them from 180. And that's going to give me angle G equals 58 degrees. Okay? And based on this information, I can figure out that since this right here is a straight angle, even though it's diagonal, it's still a straight line. Okay? I know that angle G and angle J are supplementary, which means they have to add to 180 degrees. So that means that angle G plus angle J is going to equal 180 degrees. And then I can set up the equation of 58 plus angle J is going to equal 180 degrees. And I'm going to solve by taking 58 away from both sides. And then it's going to give me that angle J is equal to 122 degrees. Okay, guys, I am running short on time, so I have one more example to go with you, and that'll be in part 3 for today, and it'll only be about 2 or 3 minutes, so do not freak out, okay? So give me just a second, and then tune in to video 3.